Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Life Adventurist podcast. I'm Jenny Holly, your host, and this is the place to be if you love spiritual things and you are looking to align who you are with your authentic self to have your soul grow into even more possibilities of your ascension path. I don't know. I was trying to figure out the words and then I just lost it. And of course, if you love to travel and have adventure, you are in the right spot. I'm so excited for today's episode because this is part 2. And I hope that you listened to part 1. And if you didn't listen to part 1, you don't have to go there first. Go ahead and stick around, listen to this episode, and then go back to part 1 from last week. Okay. Like they don't have to be listened to like in succession. Like I don't feel like either one. I mean, just listen to them both, right? You don't have to listen to them in order. So I'm bringing back a very special guest, Rick Chiantaretto, and he is like, this is his 2-time back-to-back like appearance. Like, I don't know if ever in podcast history has there been a 2-time guest back-to-back without, being like, oh, we recorded an hour, so I cut it in half into part 1 and part 2. No, like this is a whole separate topic because Rick has been called a psychic, a medium, tarot reader, sound healer, channeler, and a few more things that can't be repeated in polite company. And he prefers to refer to himself as a spiritualist whose goal is to advocate for your individual spiritual path by giving a voice to guides, ancestors, and the departed. For the last few years, he's been directly channeling a group of entities called the Collective. And that's what we're going to talk about today. We're going to talk about channeling and what it means and all that good stuff. So let me bring Rick on.
Hello.
Yay, Rick. Welcome back.
Welcome for having me again.
Well, it's so perfect because I could totally see you coming back as a guest in the future, like, I don't know, like months or a year from now or whatever, like sometime in the future to talk about something else or deeper, right? And this one is like literally back to back. Like we took a little potty break, we came back because it's like, dude, he's just got so much to offer. And I love this topic today because we're going to talk a bit about channeling. So in case this is their first one they're listening to, Rick, like introduce yourself a little bit and kind of talk a little bit about who you are. Because
of course. Well, first of all, thank you. Like I feel very seen and validated. So thank you for having me be back to back. And it's a very special experience for me too. So yes, I'm Rick Chiantaretto. I own tarotfellow.com. I have been reading for about 22 years now. What? It's been a long time.
I didn't even know that. We've talked all these times.
Yeah, I know, right? Yeah. But yeah, these last 2 years, spiritual growth is always a thing, right? You're always growing. But this is definitely something new. This direct, almost trance channeling has been, I don't know, a leap in my soul growth, I guess. So yes, I definitely consider myself a spiritualist. I can't say that I follow any particular path. I just do what spirit tells me.
Yeah, what aligns. I know alignment is a big thing for you and making sure that you are in alignment.
Yes.
Oh, that's awesome. Okay, so today's episode, I'm just gonna say this again. So last week's episode was that we were talking about tarot and everything there, and this week's episode we're talking about channeling. So, okay, the way I understand it, there's lots of different ways to channel. So will you talk a little bit about that? And then even more specifically, like you mentioned trance channeling, like what is a trance channel?
Yeah, for sure. So funny enough, the Collective has described this for me because I don't think I have the words for it. But when it comes to like channeling for yourself and the psychic readings and the Akashic record readings, right? Like all of them are a form of channeling. And it's almost like last week when we talked about the different like levels of cartomancy, right? Cartomancy, yeah. You have the oracle decks, and then there's the tarot deck with specific rules, right? I think channeling is one of those broader terms that really encompasses a lot of different things. And the Collective has told me that the simplest form of channeling that everybody on this planet does, we often call inspiration. And I loved that.
Totally makes sense. Totally
Yeah.
makes sense because I've heard someone else who I follow and I've referenced a lot in this podcast is Christina the Channel. And
Yes.
she has talked about that as well, where like we all are channeling. We're
Yeah.
all channeling all the time. You know, that little gut feeling that you have, that inspiration, that's essentially channeling. Your intuition, that's channeling. Because, like you said, you're right. At the most basic form, that's channeling. But then
Yes.
there's also, you know, these different paths, just like anything else, right? These different paths. And I feel like not one is better than the other. I feel like it's a matter of what you're called to or where you feel most drawn, or like you said, even as your spiritual path unfolds and you're growing and you're, you know, sometimes you don't look to do some of these things.
Right.
They come to you, you know,
Yes.
it's presented. So talk a little bit about well, I guess before that, let's talk about what is a trance channel? Like what is that?
Yeah, for sure. So, if you look back at kind of some of the popular channelers, right, you have like Esther Hicks, who channels Abraham, right? Back before that, it was the entity Set. You've got Bashar, who is, yeah, the extraterrestrial entity, right, that is channeled. And then you have Christina, the channeler, right? Um, a, a lot of those even describe their experiences quite differently. Um, Esther Hicks in particular, she's very present and cognizant. She walks around the stage, she's got her eyes open, she's like interacting with people. And she's kind of described it as if Abraham gives her blocks of data, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that she then just interprets those blocks of data.
Mm-hmm.
But then you've got other channelers who are like deeper into this trance state where they aren't moving around, where they've got their eyes closed. Bashar is one, right, who keeps his eyes closed while he's channeling. Um, so there's like these different levels, I guess. And what I have started doing, I consider it semi-trance because I am very aware and can be aware of my physical surrounding at any time, but I wouldn't be able to do it with my eyes open or
Mm-hmm.
standing. I actually lie down to do
Mm-hmm.
it, right? Yeah.
I didn't realize that that was a way. Like, you know, you see so many, like you said, the Bashars and whoever are sitting just like we are on this video
Yeah.
on YouTube, right? Like we're sitting here, like you see a lot of that. And I guess do some people maybe record themselves laying down and channeling?
I do. Maybe I'm weird. I don't
On
know.
video, like on YouTube?
So I usually don't show myself
Okay.
because it's not about me, right? It's about
Got
the
it.
collective.
Got it.
Yeah, so I usually have a little visualization that I think you'll see today.
Okay, yeah, to put with it. You know what?
Yeah,
Actually, I just remembered. I don't know. One day I was going down the rabbit hole. I don't remember who it was, but actually I did see someone on YouTube who was laying down in the bed and they had their video up and they went into trance and then channeled whoever they were channeling. And
yeah,
to be honest, even though I'm super into all this stuff, I was kind of like, this is weird. I don't want to watch this guy.
yeah, totally.
I don't really get it. I think now where I'm at, it definitely wouldn't be as weird to me. But I get
Yeah,
how like sometimes when you're very first exposed to some of these edges in spirituality, right? Like
yeah,
sometimes they can be a bit,
overwhelming for
yeah.
sure. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
That's probably one of the reasons why I don't record myself in particular. But if I have a one-on-one session with somebody or a group session, even then, yeah, I'll have the video trained on me because it is a live, interactive session. And yeah, I'd have no idea what I look like. It's probably weird.
Someone's coming to you for that. Like they're already past the, you know, okay, I'm on YouTube because I'm doing this to spread the word or to get awareness or whatever the like reason for going on YouTube and showing that, you know,
Yeah,
it's definitely interesting. Actually, I'm just remembering. Okay, so I used to, this is probably like 7 or 8 years ago, I'm guessing. I don't know. It's been a minute. Way before I was in Akashic Records. But I was always into this stuff, but not as deep as I am now. Um, and I was traveling in Texas for work, and I used to go to these like meetup groups that were like spiritual meetup groups at someone's house, and it would be different things. Like I don't remember exactly, but like Tuesday nights were pretty like gentle, you know, like there would be some kind of meditation, or one time like an Akashic record reader came, or I don't know, they were pretty like gentle things. But then there was like the Thursday night thing that kind of was like you got invited when she'd been to a couple of the gentler things or
Ooh,
whatever.
nice. Yeah.
Thursday night thing, there were people there who were probably trance channeling, but because that was so new to me, from memory, someone was there and they were rocking and then they were channeling in a very different voice than
Mhm.
how they had presented themselves like in conversation. And I was like, this is weird. I don't know if this is for me. But at
Yes.
the same time, now I would sit in that and not have a problem.
I am totally with you. I think that the woman that accidentally kind of taught me to channel, which we can talk about in a minute, but
Like we definitely have to talk about how you got into this.
I was super skeptical when I first saw
Mhm.
her, right? And definitely, yeah, it's just it's an edge experience for
Yeah.
sure. Um, but there was a moment when I was like watching the energies of the room, right? And it almost looked like there was a mouth coming out of her mouth speaking
Mhm.
at one point, and I was like, okay, this is real, right?
Yeah.
But I brought some friends the next time she held a public session, and they all were like, we didn't like it. Like, so okay, not ready. But
Right.
yeah,
Well,
yeah,
and two, also I feel like that there's that edge, like you said, where it's not ready, but also maybe that person or whoever they're channeling or whatever, maybe it's just not a good fit.
totally. Yeah,
Period.
yeah,
Like, you know how it is, even outside a spiritual world.
right.
Someone could be a professional speaker and have the best message ever, but the way that they deliver their voice, their tonality, their expressions could totally turn someone off. And I know that
Totally.
for a fact because my mentor back in the day, which I won't say name because that way I'll just keep it clean right now. But my mentor back in the day, my parents were like, what the hell? This guy, no, I don't know how you sit and listen to him. This is just absolutely wretched on my ears. Like they were pretty intense about it.
Oh wow.
Just did not like his style.
Yeah,
But once again, if you put someone who was their style in front of them saying the same exact message, they would be all about
would
it, but
love it. Right.
past the
Yep.
the
And
presentation, you know?
yeah. And I mean, you look at even the big names like Bashar and Abraham Hicks, right? There are definitely people that just simply don't align with that. And
Totally.
so I do think that's one of the reasons why Spirit is stepping forward and having more of these experiences to be delivered in different interpretations, right? Of the same message almost.
You know, it's interesting. I'm going to say this story to then open it up for your story. So there's your prep time. Is I just started following and getting into. I just lost his name. He channels the Hathors.
I don't think I know who they are.
Kenyon Hathors. Tom Kenyon. He channels the Hathors. He's a little bit older. I think he's in his 70s. And he
Okay.
actually does toning for them as well. And I've not witnessed like visually him doing the channeling, but I've listened to some of his like presentations that he has for free on his site, and he's talking. Oh, this is how it is. He's like setting it up intellectually for people as to what's going to happen, and that's maybe he'll give a little excerpt, and then he's like, okay, well, once I kind of connect and they're toning through me, that's kind of it. I'm gone, right?
Yeah.
And, I've experienced his toning, so he's channeling. The reason I said this is because the way that he got into it is he definitely was not looking for it.
Right.
They basically came to him and he said he rejected it so much that they ended up sending 12 Hathors to him. And he was like, wow, I must be special. There's 12. They're like, no, because you wouldn't do it with one. Like we had to come in full force to get you to, because this is part of his, I guess, soul contract. So what was the experience like for you? How did you
Well,
get into this?
I totally get that. And I think most channelers would give you a similar story, including myself. Like this was not something I was expecting.
Uh-huh.
I went to this woman for a reading because I was interested in the healing work that she did, and I wanted to support her and her business. You know, and she was kind of, I guess, coming out as this channeler, right? Um, and yeah, it was. I mean, even she was like, if I don't do this, I have physical problems. Like, and my physical problems go away when I allow the channel through. Like, so it's very sometimes very controlled in that way, I suppose.
Mhm.
Um, for me, after I saw her and we did a session where we had, she does with everybody. Part of her session work is that she wants you to channel your higher self, right?
Mm.
That's the goal of what you're doing in the session. And it was an interesting experience. I didn't feel hypnotized. I didn't feel super under. I didn't feel, it's the same as I guess kind of now. I felt very relaxed in this semi-conscious state, right?
Mhm.
Um, and then a few years ago, I guess it was in December 2018, I still remember, I was walking down the road and I was having a conversation with myself, like we all do, right? And I realized that the voice that I was having a conversation with wasn't the normal voice in my head.
Mm.
It was just a different tone. It was different. And it said to me, go do that meditation to get to your higher self again. And I went, okay, I can go do that. And I did that. And when I got there, I was like standing in front of this crescent mooned table. And there were all these people sitting at it. And I was like, this isn't my higher self. And then they started talking. And so that was my first experience with the collective.
It's interesting, as you explain that, and once again, my questions are just coming from not knowing, right? I'm just pulling from experiences I've had, not personally, but I've heard other people share, right?
Yeah.
So Elizabeth April, she channels, she remote views, she astral travels, etc. So she works with the Galactic Federation of Light, and the words that she uses, she says, she usually says like, I remote view into the ship, and I go meet with them.
Mhm.
You know, I don't like, it sounded very similar to the way she's talked about it. Is it just, do you know anything about remote viewing? Is it the same type of thing, or is it a different like?
Yeah, I think it's pretty similar. Kind of the meditation that is
Mhm.
used to get there, and I actually do in all of my sound healings now too, right? I take people to this place that they get to create as part of the meditation, and it is that journeying spot, that launch point, right? And then
Mhm.
whatever happens after that is beyond my control, right?
Right.
And so I definitely, every time I go to the same launch point, and then that's kind of how I get there. So if she's projecting into a ship, that's her launch point, right?
Okay.
Yeah, and so I do feel it's very similar.
Ah, okay. This is definitely helping me understand, because it's interesting, because the people that I'm most drawn to right now in my spiritual journey, and I had a whole episode talking about my spiritual awakening and all the people that I have followed up to this point. So if you guys want to hear all that, go back to that episode. Not right now. Stay for Rick. It's the ones I'm most drawn to right now are Elizabeth April and Christina the Channel. I think it's because they both are channeling, and I can relate because of doing the Akashic Records work. And
Yes.
while they're not teaching me Akashic Record stuff, it's like I'm just listening to like the way they're talking about the things, or the way that they're positioning, or the way they're interpreting, or whatever, just kind of from a learning standpoint, since they've been doing it a lot longer
Yeah.
and a lot more wider than I have. So for
We,
you, go ahead. Were you gonna say something?
I was just going to say, we talked about this a little bit in the last episode, right? How tarot kind of gave me this perspective that
Mhm.
you also feel like you get in the Akashic Records. And it's interesting how the tools just bring us to the same perspective, right? I think it's similar to that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it does seem like that, because it's like, even when you're okay, no, that's perfect. You saying that made an even better question here. So since you use tarot as one of your tools, how is this channeling of the collective, and we definitely have to talk about who the heck the collective is. I
Yeah.
mean, but how is channeling the collective, even like, how is it different or the same, or
Oh, it's totally different. In the tarot readings, I almost feel like spirit comes to me, right? Like they're very much present in the room almost. I don't feel like I go anywhere. I probably do zone out a little bit as I'm paying attention to those energies, but I've never felt like I left, right?
okay,
When I channel, I feel like I'm somewhere else.
got it.
Yeah. And so it's very much a me going to them versus them coming to me. And I know we're meeting somewhere in the middle because I know I'm not going all the way up there,
Right,
right?
right.
but yeah, that's the difference. And I have started for the last 2 years or so, I will go get the collective for a tarot reading about an hour before they get there, and they'll give me information before the reading even starts.
Oh, okay.
And then I can confirm that with the cards. And if it's not in the stories, we talk about it anyway, right? So I have been able to sort of utilize this channeling ability even without necessarily putting it forward to the person I'm getting or I'm reading.
Okay, that's interesting because yeah, like just paying attention to the words that you're using, right? Because this is where I'm at right now. You're talking about, in a tarot reading, it's spirit, and really, essentially, the collective is spirit too. But it seems like there is a difference in what you're talking about, unless you're specifically you said I go and get them. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah. So again, it's kind of entering this. It starts in that meditative state, right? And actually, the collective has offered the same meditation to everybody. So it is posted. You can go listen to them. They will guide you through how I get to the collective, pretty much, and in the hopes that you will be able to channel either your higher self or your own, spiritual beings, ancestors, guides, whatever they may be, right? So it starts there. I get to that launch point, and then it feels like I get into this little elevator, and my body stays, and I get like sucked up. I go above the clouds, above the earth, like into this like very black, almost nothingness space, and then I emerge to this almost crystalline planet where this is all out there. I know it's just the visuals that I can describe with it, right?
I feel like if you're listening to Life Adventurist podcast and you've stuck around through like the Akashic records and whatever, like you're in.
You're out there too.
Like listen to it. Just listen to expand your brain, and then you can throw it away if you want later. Put it in the maybe later box. Chuck it. Doesn't matter. It's all good.
Totally. But so even talking about it is very interesting to me because I don't talk about this. Isn't something that I talk about often with people in a public forum. So yeah. Then I get to that table and we do our little introductions, and then there is one entity that is kind of the filter. So all of them talk, but he's the transmitter. He's the one that's aligned that then sends it to me. So, and then I just repeat it. So my voice doesn't change. Definitely the words that I use and the way that I speak does, but it's not a strange voice. It's still me doing the interpretation is how they describe it.
Okay. Yeah. So right now when you're talking, are they like here talking through and with you, or no, you have to actually like you said, go get them?
I do have a feeling that they are more involved than I am aware of.
Okay.
But this is very true. I definitely set up like a start and an end with them, right? Okay. Almost like you do with the Akashic records, right? You open and close them. Yeah. So I have that same sort of opening and closing with the collective.
Okay. So let's talk about who's the collective. Who are they? You've dropped a little bit, but we'll have a spot here for it.
Yeah. So they are a group of 6, and it's been kind of an interesting journey because as I look back through my life and the spirit that I have worked with, right? I have worked with all of them at some point in my life. I thought that they were there to teach me a lesson and then leave, right? Because that's what seemed like happened. The spirit would come, I would learn something from them, and then I would never see them again. And so it was very surprising to recognize the people the first time at the table and realize that these are like long lost friends that I haven't seen in years, right? Mm-hmm. That's what it felt like. Mm-hmm. My 2 of my guides are always at the table. And then the others are these working spirits. And then that speaker, he calls himself the speaker.
The speaker. Yeah, because when we did an Akashic record reading, I think you asked like, who is he? What is his name? And there wasn't really anything that came through.
Did I ask about that one? I know that I asked about why that one never sat at the table.
Okay, I was like, because I have in my mind the way this looks, I was like, that's so funny because I'm like, wait, is it that one that you asked? Yeah. He's like, oh, okay. I was like,
Yeah, they are a little bit, um, like it's very interesting because when I talk about who they are, right, and how they were organized and all of that stuff, they're like, they've always been very hesitant about that, almost like it's less important than the message. And they want people to know them versus like be told who they are, kind of a thing. Um, the best way that I can say it is that, you know, from almost the religious standpoint, there are religious entities that have been worshipped, angels, whatever you want to call them, right? And I feel like they, those particular entities or spirits are connected to more of us in a way that is special and unique because of that attention, adoration, prayers, right?
Mhm.
And so the collective is not made up of any of those beings, but I think that's because of where my vibration is, right? I don't think I could talk to an angel, frankly. um, but they do have like a line, a connection
Uh-huh.
somehow to that greater source or whatever you want to call it that then echoes back down to people. So they
Mhm.
have this really unique way of pulling in people's guides
Mhm.
and letting them speak through the speaker too, even though they don't sit on the collective all the time.
That makes
Yeah.
sense.
Yeah.
I mean, like you said, it'd be kind of similar to Akashic record reading because it's the Akashic record readers and your guides
Yes.
and then whoever else. I mean, some I'm sure I am not aware of what else is maybe, but maybe the person is and the words that are used, at
Right.
least me. Are you aware that there is a different energy in the field?
Usually at the beginning, I
Okay,
am, but at some point, like that alignment gets so connected to that speaker that it doesn't matter, right? Because that's all I pick up on,
got
right?
it. Okay.
But yeah, I did just do a reading for a friend of mine, and I struggled at the beginning staying in the connection because it was a different vibration frequency. That's the words they use to describe it, right? Because of that, those other
Mhm.
beings that were there. So yeah, yeah,
So I want to ask a clarifying question, and even this could be a myth here that we could bust depending on
yeah.
how we go. So it seems like you specifically use the word entity, and I feel
Hmm.
like entity could be another one of those labels that could have a positive or negative type of association with it. Like entity, what is it? A demon? What is it?
Totally, yeah.
Whatever versus like what you hear in the spiritual world, like the souls and the energies and the 11 frequencies and all these different titles and labels. So is there a reason why
Yes.
you specifically use the word entity when you're talking about this?
Um, they don't like the labels either. So uh,
Yeah.
I think what it comes down to is the fact that we talk about spirit and what is spirit, right? Is it only people who have passed on, who have lived a physical existence? Is that what spirit is, right?
Mhm.
And if that's the case, well, I don't think all of them have lived a physical life, right? And so therefore they can't, like an angel, for example, maybe didn't live a physical life. So, but is an angel also a kind of spirit?
Mhm.
Probably, right? Is a demon a kind of spirit? Yeah. And then it gets really weird. Is an alien from another dimension any different than a spirit in that dimension? Like, isn't
Right,
it like, when you get into those parallel reality things and all of that, like
right.
which reality is the spirit world versus an alien
Mhm.
experience, right? Um so that's why I use entity, because I can't be sure which realities they're coming from. So,
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, even with that, so entity, because you did like I brought in the word energy. So, like, if you called them energies, or does that still
yeah,
feel like it's not that could be interchangeable, entity,
yeah,
energy.
totally,
It's
yes.
just more the label and the nuances that we wanna put on things.
Right, right. I would love to refer to them all as spirit, but for some reason it doesn't feel right. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And 2, we talked about on the last episode a little bit about, like, the title medium and what that means and what it doesn't mean, so if you guys wanna listen to that, like, we did go into that last episode about how medium has a certain expectation to it, and I think that that's kinda what's coming up here because, you know, I know myself when people ask me what the Akashic records are, I'm like, okay, you got the Akashic Records guides. And I've even paused and hesitated to be like, they're entities, because I'm like, oh, is that like a scary word? Like they're
Yeah.
entities. They're these crazy, okay, they're just energies, like they're spirit. Like I've struggled with like, how do I categorize this? Because even though labels are annoying, there's still has to be some way to be able to explain in
Right.
the 3D reality
Right.
what things are.
Yeah. And are the Akashic record keepers guides? Well, probably, but guide has that expectation of like a spirit guide, which isn't the job of the record keeper, right? So yeah, it's very much, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's such a good, yeah, because it's Akashic Record keepers and guides, if we're going into labels, right? And I'm an Akashic Record guide.
Oh, yep,
And that's kind of like the Akashic Record keepers are the record keepers.
right,
Your guides are your guides.
exactly.
I'm a
Yep.
guide, I guess, because I'm guiding and facilitating the experience.
So how do you refer to all of those entities? I don't know. That's how I would anyway. Yeah.
That's the name of them all.
Yeah.
Okay, so do you feel like there's anything else you want to share before we go into the special gift we have this episode of hearing an actual channeled message from the collective?
Yeah, I do. I just want to clarify a little bit with the trance channeling, right? One of the big fears and the myths that I had about it was that concept of religious possession, right?
Mhm.
Allowing somebody into your body to move your body, to speak through you, um, and kind of what that entails, right? Um, and maybe for people who are in a deep, deep trance, that could very well be the case, right? For me, in and maybe they're being gentle with me because of my past experiences and beliefs, right? I can stand up and end the session at any time, right?
Mhm.
So I don't feel like anything is taken over per se.
Mhm.
Um, but I do understand the fear. So
Mm.
just wanted to clarify that.
I appreciate that, 'cause that's not something, that was, like, directly on my radar, but you're right, that is something. Oh, you're so right. I have a friend of mine who's super into spiritual stuff, and he has, I don't fully know his story because he hasn't fully shared it with me, but I've got bits. And he has channeled before, and for him, he has allowed entity to
Mhm.
come into his body and use his body as a vessel to share a message. He's also alluded to the fact that this is his experience, right? That is something that he is like completely closed off to. I guess he had some close calls. I don't know what that means. He hasn't shared
Sure.
with me, but he's also been, anytime I've talked about, oh, astral traveling and, channeling, he's always like, oh, be very, very careful. Like he's always got a layer, because whatever his experiences were with
Yep.
that, I don't know what, because like I said, he hasn't shared. Um, but I
Yeah.
guess I totally forgot that was a nuance when it comes to the channeling piece.
I think that's what turns a lot of people off from channeling. And so, if you're interested in starting and learning and getting these downloads or these inspirations, right? Like I said, it can start as simple as that inspiration. It can start as simple as listening in a meditation, right? You definitely don't have to be like all gung ho ready to let something jump into you. So,
Ready, come on. And even
yeah,
wouldn't be the best way anyways. If you're like, okay, I'm ready, anything, like
right. No.
you said, like there's certain pathways and there's certain things. Cause then I feel like, okay, there, I'm gonna add that as a nuance, and you can refine it for sure if you feel the need, is like, being like, okay, I'm ready to channel. Who wants to talk to me? Versus, having a specific pathway, having a specific intention, having a specific, like you said, like jump off space, but
Yeah.
also having the ability, for yourself to be able to use discernment and to work in tandem with your higher self to know when you are in alignment.
Yes.
I also feel like it starts before that, but I get it. If someone's new, they may be tapping into, all right,
Yeah.
aliens wants to talk to me.
For
Don't
sure.
know
Yeah.
if there's a trickster energy or whatever coming in, if you're just kind of like, me, let's go.
Right. Right. So I have kind of my own hangups about all of that, but I definitely think that if you're approaching your spiritual team and you've had a relationship with them, and you've already been having the conversations with them, then you are in fact channeling, right? And
Yeah.
so be accepting of that and accepting to that alignment opening up in a safe way with those trusted things, right? Then maybe it's not so scary and won't hold you back.
Well, and I'll add this other layer before we get into, setting the table for the recording here for the message is, you and I are kind of talking a bit from like practitioner side, and we're kind of like going back and forth just to give a little peek behind the curtain. I feel like the big thing is, look, if you're listening or watching and you're like, I don't want to channel, I have no interest, cool. You can have zero interest in channeling, but you can still be drawn to this work to be able to hear, like you said, the messages from the collective, messages from Bashar, messages from, whoever is channeling
Totally.
message. And then you can see who and what you resonate with, because I hear this time and time again with people who I listen to who channel messages. Once again, use your discernment. If it's for you, take it. If not, leave it. None of this like hard set must take into your life the final word. You always have your own free will.
Yes.
To take it or leave it.
I recently got the message that truth exists beyond the scope that spirit has asked us to work in, right? And so it's very easy for me to say to somebody, oh, that message that they're channeling may very well be true, but it doesn't need to be for me and my truth over here. Right?
Yeah. And I think that's a perfect way to segue. Could you set up the audio that we're going to play here of a channel message? Can you kind of set it up for the listeners and watchers as to like what's going to happen next?
Sure, yes. So funny enough, in my reading with Jeni, one of the things that I wanted to cover was how I move this work into a more public space. And I'm a perfectionist, and I know the collective are perfectionists. And I wanted everything aligned perfect, and I wanted their website to be perfect, and I wanted, whatever. And the message that I got, whether Jeni said it or not, I can't remember, was that I need to start somewhere and use the tools that are available. And so I did that. I started putting out the collective's recordings, and I was blown away by how well they have been received so far. It's been very inspirational, and it's been very beautiful for me to watch their messages be received. One of the groups that where these videos are being posted, I allow questions and answers, right? And this particular recording was actually a very difficult day for me. I didn't feel like it was very good at all. But when I played it back and listened to it, I was absolutely shocked by the clarity of the answers that were given in direct response to questions from people in this group, even though I felt like I wasn't in as deep as I usually go. And one of the greatest things that they talk about is what kinds of questions they like to answer and have conversations about. Because I do think people think that it's like a psychic reading. I guess one of the biggest questions we get all the time as channelers is, what do my guides look like? Right? And in this particular recording, somebody had asked about a job, and then somebody else had asked about housing. And these are so important to like our physical existence, right? And I think the collective really expanded in this recording a way to rephrase those questions and to understand where those questions are coming from. And that's what I love about the collective, is they make you think differently. They challenge your question with questions that just shift your perspective so profoundly, and make you feel like you're in control and empowered of your life. And I love that about them.
Yeah. And what's cool about, I feel like this is my take on this, what we're all about to listen to is, so when Rick and I met, we talked about if it would be appropriate or not to have a channeled message on as part of the podcast and YouTube. He was like, okay, well, go listen to this one. I think this one might be the good one. So I listened to the one he sent me, which is not the one you're about to hear. And I went and listened to like kind of all of the ones that he currently has posted in this group on Facebook. And I was like, oh my God, the one you're about to hear, I was like, this is the one that is perfect for the podcast, for the message, for everything. Like, I feel like it was just a really great representation of what you do, what they do, how the messages come from outside of us. I guess I say that because a lot of times, I'm continuing to be in awe, like the things that come through me, like that's not me. Yes,
Right.
it's my voice saying it, like, but
Right.
I'm just facilitating. So I think that this is the perfect thing. So you guys get to experience that. Just stay. Oh, you know what? Let me ask you this, because if someone's listening on like the road, is it okay for them to listen to this while driving? Is there anything
Yeah.
like that? Okay.
No, it's not a meditation. You don't need to close your eyes in this one. They do have some where they ask you to do that, but not this one. So
Okay. So yeah, just sit back, take it in. Once again, take it or leave it, and enjoy. And we'll see you at the end. We're going to talk about it at the end, so don't leave yet.
A heartfelt good afternoon to you all. We would like to take the opportunity in this session to answer some questions that were posed to us. There were 3 in particular, one of which we will save for a future date. The 2 that we would like to address were quite specific in nature. One had to do with whether or not to stay in a job or to take a new one. And the other had to do with why life seemed to be so difficult, particularly around the area of safety and security in housing for a particular family. We've given the host some information previous to this session in order to answer these questions in a more timely manner directly. But we thought that we would address them ourselves in this session, not only in a way to expand on those answers, but to give you the opportunity to understand the kinds of answers that you can expect from us. There are many kinds of questions that you may ask, and we would never pass judgment on whether a question is a good or a bad one, but there are some that we are more aligned to answering than others. Very specific questions, such as, should I take this job or the next one? Do not have an answer that is within our purview. The reason is quite simple. Every opportunity that you receive in life is in response to a particular vibration that you have offered, something that you have asked or desired. And so when a new job comes along, whether or not you should take it is very dependent on what vibration that you have offered that this opportunity is then responding to. Whenever you have questions, whether you ask a psychic, your spiritual team, or God, it may be important for you to understand that the answer can only be understood if you understand the vibration that the answer is responding to. We will use this job question as a further example as we illustrate this. Let's say that you are particularly interested in offering a vibration of desiring more wealth and abundance. This is very much tied to jobs in your physical reality. And so it would make sense that job opportunities would respond to this vibration. Knowing that the opportunities that are coming to you are responding to this vibration of a desire for greater wealth and abundance is going to be very important in determining whether or not that job is a good fit for your life in general. Perhaps you also desire to spend more time with your family. but your desire for wealth and abundance is the alignment with which you are asking. And so a job may come along that is not a good fit for time with your family, but that does answer the vibration of additional wealth and abundance. At this point, do you take the job? Well, that will depend on how important these other aspects, these other vibrations in your life are to you at that present time. We would suggest that any time that the universe responds with an opportunity to one of your petitions, to one of your vibrations, to the frequency that you are putting out into the universe, that more often than not, you should take these opportunities. The reason, quite simply, is that occasionally, or more than occasionally, you don't truly understand or know what you want in the moment. And so by taking the opportunities, you give yourself the opportunity to adjust to that new vibration, that new frequency, and then create new desires, which then are offered to the universe, for which additional opportunities may present. This is how we learn. This is how we shift vibration slowly over a period of time, in your words. It is very difficult to be in a position to be prepared to receive a vibration that is completely different than the one that you are offering. And so these opportunities that are not in alignment or are completely different, even though they might be something that you desire, they will not present themselves without stepping stones to shift into that vibration. And so you take the opportunity in this example to align more with wealth and abundance, only to find that in fact, you do value that family time. And in that case, another opportunity would present that is both aligned to wealth and abundance and that time. Often we experience negative emotions and negative associations due to belief systems that are being thrust upon you in society, and vibrations that are being suggested to you by those who are not within your alignment. Perhaps in this job example, the truth is that you do not wish to spend more time with your family. But because everything around you, every other person and society in general teaches you that you should like your family, that you should wish to spend more time with them, then you begin to experience this feeling of guilt for this desire that you have. And then that guilt can interfere with the experience of the opportunity that the universe could offer you if that guilt were not part of your vibration being offered. One of the major vibrations that withhold you from wealth is the idea or the belief that you have that wealth is tied to worthiness, that those who are wealthy must be worthy of the wealth or have earned it in some way. And yet we are quite sure that if you truly look for examples of wealth in the physical reality in which you are participating, you will find that there are many with much wealth and abundance who in fact do not deserve it, are not worthy of it, and did not earn it. So the reason that they have it is because they understand the vibration of wealth and are creating with that vibration. To shift to the other question about the housing, the vibration that is being offered is particularly tuned to the idea of safety. And yet there is this idea, this other vibration within your alignment that tells you that you are not safe, that you are not good enough. And so opportunities will present themselves and then fall through, or opportunities may present themselves that would in fact not provide you the safety that you desire. And then those would also fall through as they respond not to the safety vibration, but to the vibration of issues with self-worth. These appear occasionally as though you are being tested, that you are being given the opportunity to see your limiting beliefs. And while it is true that that does give you the opportunity to examine those limiting beliefs and choose whether or not those beliefs still serve you, it is not the universe testing you in this way. It is the universe responding to this vibration and providing you the opportunity that matches this vibration. It is important for us to note that as you work with us and that you work with your spiritual teams, that when you work with your deities, your angels, those people that you pray to, those entities that you pray to, whatever that belief looks like for you, that there is no being powerful enough to shift your vibration for you, to change the frequency that you are putting off for you. When you ask questions like, can I be completely different? Can this thing happen that completely changes my life? There is nobody but you with the power to make that frequency change occur. And so it will occasionally appear as though you are not receiving answers, that you are not receiving the opportunities that you desire, or that these answers are not direct enough. We assure you that your spiritual teams, those who are responsible for you, that see you, that love you, your ancestors, your guides, that they all suggest vibrations. Whether or not you accept these depends very much upon your alignment and whether or not you are prepared to receive them, and whether that vibration that they are suggesting to you is close enough to be received. And so when the universe responds to you with these opportunities that are not truly exactly what you desire, but that are perhaps in the right direction of what you desire, then you are able to shift your vibration little by little until you can make large changes. The concept of time in this physical reality lends quite helpfully to this, as you can measure over years how your vibration has changed, how your desires have changed, and how you have either come into or deviated from the alignment that you truly desire. For now, we will leave you with these thoughts. We hope that they provide some context into the kinds of answers you can expect from us. And we bid you a heartfelt good afternoon.
Rick, that was awesome. Like, I love that message. I love that channeled message. Like, I loved hearing it again. Like, I feel like the channel messages, especially, you could just listen to them over and over and over and over.
I think I have to, because there's so much that I like don't remember, right? And so to go back and hear them again it's just one of those moments for me too. Like, again, I really felt like that one was a hard day for me, and yet this idea that we get these answers based on the vibration that we're offering, and just that awareness, right, of, oh, what is this responding to? I think that perspective just changes the world. I don't know. And it's not me, right? It's definitely the collective. I think that they really love and care about us.
Yeah, and I think you were telling me, and I get this too, is that sometimes when you're channeling, you don't really remember what's coming through. I mean, you're there and you're conscious, but sometimes it's just not like in your memory. So do you feel like, I'm speaking from my experience, do you feel like when you're channeling a message like that, that's so powerful and so profound, do you feel like there's like other stuff that you pick up on that like you're aware of, but you just maybe aren't speaking to like what exactly they said?
Yes, yes. In fact, occasionally I will have to make notes of them, because the way that the collective has described it is that I'm interpreting, right? And my brain, my words, my neural pathways are being fired during this process. And so the frequencies that they give me have to be very selective in order to trigger the right interpretation. And they're very direct when some neural pathway fires that's wrong, but that's common to me, right? And then I'll finish a sentence without getting the vibration first. And the entire transmission will stop, and I'll have to start that over again to make sure that I select the correct words for them. And I know that there's this much that I'm voicing, but I believe that the most powerful thing about these sessions is the channeling that the other people are picking up from those vibrations that are being sent, that maybe I'm not aligned with. Yep. But if it creates inspiration, if it creates, knowledge or information in your own mind, I believe they do that on purpose.
Yeah, I totally get that, because when you're listening to a channel message or reading a channel text, there is more embedded in that material than the words on the paper, the words that you're hearing.
Absolutely. Yeah.
By far. That's so awesome. Okay, so I'm so grateful that you were willing to come out in this public forum and share this amazing gift that you have with the world. So if someone, I mean, for sure, if someone's made it this far, like they're digging Rick, they're like, this is awesome. Like, are you offering readings? Like, how's it working? Where can they go?
Yeah, so I am selectively. I do have a website called thecollectivespeaks.com where you can sign up for the mailing list, which I've never sent anything out yet, but hopefully it's there. You can join the Facebook group, The Collective Speaks, as well. That is like I'm moderating that and who joins it. And if you do want a collective session, I would be happy to consider you for one. Please reach out, message, and I can see what the collective says about that, because it's up to them. So.
I get that. We had on the podcast a few months ago, Joanna, not Joe Naughton, she talked a lot about that, like how she has certain soul contracts with people, and she just, the business side of business to go close everybody and sell or whatever, and she's like, I just don't do that. Like it's got to be the right fit. So the cool thing is if someone's been listening along or watching along, like that's something that has already been planted a seed of like the potency of, especially working with someone like you and the collective, but still you're the face of it. Even if the collective writes a book and you're the one who is physically writing it, it has to have your name. It's not going to say the collective, it's going to say your name. So you're still
somebody alive has to publish it.
You're still like attached to it. So I mean, I think it's pretty amazing. And I'm so grateful, like I said, that you were willing to come share and have this very, like, I feel very expansive, knocking into the edges, right, of what's possible or what's the edge of our belief, or
absolutely
we're listening. Is there anything else you feel like that would be super important to this conversation that we maybe didn't touch?
No, not that I can think of. So that's good. That's always a good thing.
That is perfect. Yes. Well, make sure you guys connect with Rick. I've got his thecollectivespeaks.com scrolling on the YouTube screen, and you just heard it. You just heard it yourself on the podcast. So thank you, Rick, for coming.
Thank you for having me again. So awesome. I appreciate you.
All right, guys, I'll see you on the next episode. Bye.